Good morning and welcome. Thanks for tuning in. My name's Ben and this is the problem with being awake. I wanted to just briefly touch on a subject, lighter hearted than normal, but, well, what is a nervous breakdown? A true nervous breakdown. And I'll start by saying, in all my years as a therapist, I only met one other person who had had a nervous breakdown in a decade of seeing clients. But I have had hundreds of, almost 25% of my clients would say they had or were suffering with a nervous breakdown. Now, what a nervous breakdown is exactly what it says. It's a breakdown of your nervous system. So it means your bodily functions stop working properly. The signals from your brain through your nervous system stop transmitting correctly. It might tell you that you want to eat when in fact you have no need to eat. It might also stop the that channel so that you can't, you don't get hungry, but your body needs sustenance. So someone going through a true nervous breakdown needs to be medically attended. It is a bit of a thing that I found quite insulting, and therefore want to educate about, because so many people would come in to me and say, I had a nervous breakdown over this. You can't have a nervous breakdown over anything. But what you've probably had is an anxiety-based overwhelming of your psyche. That's a very different thing. Lots of people have suffered with that, and lots of people who say they've had nervous breakdowns, that's what they've had. In 10 years, just over, I only met one person who had a nervous breakdown. I myself have a broken nervous system now. It can't be recovered. So my body doesn't. So I have to manage my own nervous system because my body won't send the signals. So the whole idea that a nervous breakdown is something that should be looked at by a therapist is erroneous. The main thing to do is to get yourself, if it really happens, get yourself to some medical place and get checked out first. So I would ask questions, lots of them. So how did you cope with not being able to eat? He said, well, I was able to eat. I said, okay. How did you cope with not knowing when you were thirsty or whether you weren't? He said, well, that didn't happen to me. I said, how did you get on with the incontinence? What do you mean, incontinence? Oh, okay. So you haven't had it. I'm pleased to tell you, you haven't had a nervous breakdown, because all of those things are part of a nervous breakdown, and the body shuts down the signaling system. The signaling system stops working, and the bodily function stops working properly. It is very dangerous, and it does need medical attention first. The reasons for it may be similar to the reasons for an anxiety-based overwhelming, which is how I reframed it to my clients. Because you can feel that the world's got too much for you, and therefore you can't cope. And a lot of people say that led them to a nervous breakdown. But it didn't. It just led them to a nasty place where they felt they didn't have the mental resources to fight back against what was happening. That is, in essence, the truth behind the subject. It's not to diminish the fact that people who have whose brains have been overwhelmed, are actually not overwhelmed. It's also understandable people want to put a title to things, But not everything needs a title. Not everyone needs a disorder, even though it may be fashionable, or it was. I think new things are fashionable now. But if you have a mental health disorder, it's not something you should be ashamed of. I have post-traumatic stress disorder from 15 years old. From 15 years ago. I learned to manage it within the first couple of years. But it's still there. As a trauma therapist, I did explain that you won't ever be able to get rid of the trauma completely. And what I did was it's a practice called EMDR, but it was about desensitizing the emotional impact that the memories that come back would have on you. You can't delete the memories. And hypnotists have tried to do that, and it's been very dangerous and it's caused a lot of harm. But when people come to see me, I like to give them the honest answer. So most people, almost all people who say they've had a nervous breakdown haven't. That does not mean they are not in a state of distress, and that does not mean that they do not need some form of help. I just want to clarify there is a difference between a nervous breakdown and an overwhelming, anxiety-based, psychological attack, if you like. Now, I hope that's useful to some people. If you like it, subscribe and share. If you don't, you probably stop listening, so that's fine. Anyway, I shall be back soon, and I look forward to speaking with you.